Failure is not the end, it's the beginning. We all know the sting of failure, that moment when things don't go as planned. When the dream you carried so carefully in your heart seems to collapse right before your eyes. It feels like the end, like all the effort, all the sacrifices, all the sleepless nights were for nothing. But here's the truth that most people miss. Failure is never the end. In fact, it's often the very beginning of something greater. Think about it. When a child learns to walk, what's the first thing that happens? They stumble, they fall, again and again. Yet, no one ever looks at that child and says, maybe walking just isn't for you. No. We encourage them. We smile when they try. We celebrate even the smallest step forward. Why? Because we know that every fall is part of the process. Failure is not final. It's a teacher. It's the moment that separates those who give up from those who rise stronger. History is filled with people who fell countless times before they ever rose to greatness. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before he created a working light bulb. Imagine if he had stopped after the 100th failure or the 1000th. The world would still be in darkness. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Can you believe that? The man who went on to create the happiest place on earth was once seen as someone without vision. And even Peter Dinklage, the very man whose speeches inspire millions today, struggled for years before he ever got a role that changed his life. Their failures weren't dead ends. They were stepping stones. But here's where most of us struggle. We confuse failure with identity. We start saying to ourselves, I am a failure, instead of I experienced failure. There's a huge difference. One is permanent, the other is temporary. The truth is, failure is an event, not a person. It's something that happens to you, not something that defines you. The sooner you separate the two, the sooner you'll realize that failure isn't the final chapter of your story. It's just a plot twist that makes your comeback even stronger. Think of your failures as doors. Some doors close because they're not meant for you. Some doors shut because you're not ready yet. But every closed door leads you closer to the right one. Every rejection teaches you what you need to refine. Every mistake forces you to learn, to adjust, to grow. Without failure, you would never develop the resilience you need to handle success when it finally comes. So the next time you fall, and you will fall, because life guarantees it, don't panic. Don't quit. Instead, look at that moment as a reset, a chance to re-strategize, a chance to rise stronger. Remind yourself, this is not the end. This is where it begins. Every fall plants the seed of a greater rise. Every failure carries the opportunity for transformation. When you embrace failure as a beginning, you stop fearing it. You stop running from it. You start using it. And that's when everything changes. The person who sees failure as the end will quit, but the person who sees it as the beginning will rise, rebuild, and rewrite their story. And that's the person who succeeds, so remember this. Failure is not your enemy. It's not your curse. It's your opportunity. Treat it as your starting line, not your finish line, because every time you fall, you are one step closer to rising higher than you ever imagined. We all know what pain feels like. The sting of rejection, the disappointment of not getting what you worked for, the heartbreak of seeing your efforts go unnoticed. Failure hurts. Struggle hurts. And it's okay to admit that. But the mistake most of us make is holding on to that pain long after the moment has passed. We replay it in our minds. We let it define our confidence. We carry it like a heavy backpack, adding weight every time life knocks us down. And before we know it, the weight of our pain keeps us from moving forward. But here's the truth. Pain is not meant to be carried forever. Pain is a signal, not a destination. It's like a warning light in your car. It tells you something's wrong, but it's not the end of the road. You don't stare at the blinking light and give up driving. You fix the problem, learn what needs to change, and keep moving. In the same way, every painful moment in your life is trying to teach you something. Your job is to learn the lesson, not to live in the pain. Think about it. When you touch something hot, it hurts, but it teaches you never to touch it again. When you fail in business, it hurts, but it shows you what strategies don't work. When someone rejects you, it stings, but it teaches you to value the right people and ignore the wrong ones. Pain has a purpose, but when you hold on to it, you miss the message. You keep suffering from the same wound instead of using it as wisdom. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who lived painless lives. They're the ones who turned their pain into power by finding the lesson hidden inside. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, but he didn't carry the bitterness of those years with him. He carried the lesson of resilience, patience, and forgiveness. That's what made him a leader who could unite a nation. Imagine if he had carried only the pain. The world would have missed one of the greatest stories of strength and freedom. Even in your own life, think about the times you've suffered. Maybe you lost an opportunity. Maybe you trusted someone who let you down. Maybe you tried something and it failed. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That simple shift will change everything, because life doesn't waste pain. Every struggle you face comes with a hidden gift, a lesson, a skill, a truth you couldn't have learned otherwise. But here's the catch. You can't receive that gift if your hands are full of resentment, anger, or self-pity. You have to let go of the pain to grab the lesson. Carrying the pain keeps you stuck in yesterday, but carrying the lesson pushes you toward tomorrow. Pain says, "Stay here." The lesson says, "Move forward." Which one you carry determines the direction of your life. So the next time you face pain, don't deny it. Feel it, acknowledge it, but then ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? Because if you don't learn the lesson, the pain will repeat itself again and again until you do. That's life's way of making sure you grow. The choice is yours. Do you want to walk through life carrying scars that weigh you down? Or do you want to carry wisdom that lifts you up? The first will keep you stuck in the past. The second will propel you into a stronger future. Remember this, and the pain was never meant to stay. It was only meant to shape you. So don't carry the pain. Carry the lesson. Don't let your scars remind you of what broke you. Let them remind you of what built you. Because once you start looking at pain as a teacher instead of a burden, you'll find yourself rising after every fall, stronger and wiser than before. Every person in life faces setbacks, plans that fail, opportunities that slip away, moments when it feels like the whole world is pushing against you. And in those times, it's easy to think that a setback is proof you're not meant to succeed. But the truth is, setbacks are not signs to stop. They're setups. Setups for a bigger comeback. Setups for the next stage of your growth. Setups for the opportunity you don't yet see. Think about it. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history happened because of setbacks. When Steve Jobs was fired from his own company, Apple, it seemed like the end. Imagine being rejected by the very thing you created. But what looked like a devastating setback was really a setup. It gave him the space to start again, to innovate, to refine his vision. And when he returned to Apple years later, he turned it into one of the most valuable companies in the world. That firing wasn't his failure. It was the setup for his greatest success. In your own life, you will face moments where everything feels like it's falling apart. You'll wonder, why me?
Why now?
But what if, instead of asking why, you asked, what is this setting me up for? Maybe the job you didn't get is pushing you toward the career you were truly meant to pursue. Maybe the relationship that ended is clearing space for someone who will support your purpose. Maybe the rejection you faced is forcing you to dig deeper, to become stronger, to find a new way. A setback is like an arrow being pulled back. The further it's pulled, the greater the launch when it's finally released. Life works the same way. The pressure, the waiting, the struggle, they're all building momentum. They're not keeping you down. They're preparing you to rise higher than you ever imagined. But here's the challenge. When you're in the middle of a setback, it doesn't feel like a setup. It feels unfair. It feels painful. That's where mindset makes the difference. If you believe setbacks mean the end, you'll quit. But if you believe setbacks are preparing you, you'll keep going. And that perseverance is what separates those who stay down from those who rise stronger. Even Peter Dinklage, before his breakout role, faced years of rejection. Casting directors told him he was too short, too unusual, not marketable. Every no could have been the end for him. But those rejections weren't walls, and they were setups. Setups to prepare him for the one role that would define his career and inspire millions. If he had quit at the setback, he would have never reached the setup. So how do you turn setbacks into setups? First, shift your perspective. Stop looking at what you lost and start looking at what you're learning. Second, be patient. Setups take time. An arrow doesn't launch instantly. It builds tension first. Third, stay ready. Because when the moment finally comes, when the opportunity shows up, You have to be prepared to grab it. Remember, life doesn't give you setbacks to break you. It gives you setbacks to shape you, to pull you back just enough so you can be launched into something greater, to strip away what doesn't serve you so you can discover what truly matters. So the next time you face a setback, don't see it as the end. See it as the preparation for your next chapter. See it as the setup for your breakthrough. Because what feels like life holding you back today may be the very force that launches you into your destiny tomorrow. When you look at the people who have achieved extraordinary things, you might assume they were simply the most talented, the most gifted, or the most fortunate. But if you look deeper, you'll find that the real secret wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, and it wasn't even intelligence. The real secret was resilience. The ability to take the hits, to get back up, and to keep moving forward no matter how hard life tried to stop them. Resilience is the quiet strength that doesn't always make headlines, but builds legends. It's what allows a person to stand again after falling, to speak again after being silenced, to dream again after being disappointed. Without resilience, failure becomes permanent. With resilience, failure becomes fuel. Think about a tree in the middle of a storm. The wind is fierce, the rain is relentless, and yet the tree bends but does not break. That's resilience. Life will bring storms to all of us. No one escapes challenges. The difference is how we respond. Some break under the weight while others bend, adjust, and then rise tall once again. Which one do you want to be? Resilience doesn't mean you won't feel pain. It doesn't mean you won't face fear. It doesn't mean you'll never fall apart. It simply means that when you do, you'll find a way to rebuild yourself. You'll find a reason to keep going, even when every part of you says stop. Peter Dinklage is a living example of this. He didn't wake up one day and become an overnight success. For years, he struggled to find roles. Rejected because of his height. Overlooked because he didn't fit the traditional mold of a leading actor. Those rejections could have crushed him. They could have convinced him to quit. But resilience kept him moving forward. He didn't allow the opinions of others to define his destiny. And because he stayed resilient, he eventually broke through with a role that made him unforgettable. The truth is, resilience is not built in comfort, it's forged in fire. Every time life knocks you down and you get back up, you grow stronger. Every time you face a rejection and choose not to quit, your spirit becomes tougher. Resilience is like a muscle. The more it's tested, the more it develops. So how do you build resilience? First, accept that pain and struggle are part of the process. Stop waiting for life to be easy. It never will be. Instead, focus on becoming stronger than the challenge. Second, learn to reframe failure. Instead of saying, "This happened to break me," say, "This happened to build me." Third, surround yourself with people who remind you of your strength, not your weakness. When you're resilient, you don't need a perfect path. You just need the courage to keep walking. Resilience is your greatest strength because it doesn't rely on external factors. You might lose money. You might lose opportunities. You might even lose people. But as long as you don't lose your resilience, you can rise again. You can rebuild. You can start over. And often, starting over with resilience makes you even stronger than before. When you look back at your life one day, you won't remember the times you had it easy. You'll remember the times you thought you couldn't go on but did anyway. You'll remember the moments you stood up when everything inside you wanted to stay down. That's the power of resilience. So hold on to it. Protect it. Build it every single day. Because resilience will carry you when talent fades, when luck fails, when opportunities vanish. It will carry you when nothing else can. And it will remind you in the darkest of nights that you are capable of rising stronger than you ever imagined. There comes a point in every struggle where you feel like you can't take one more step. The weight is too heavy. The loss is too painful, the failure's too discouraging. And in that moment, your mind whispers, "This is the end." That's the breakdown. The point where hope seems lost and you're tempted to quit. But here's the truth, the breakdown is not your destiny. The comeback is. Every great story has a moment where it looks like the hero won't make it. That's what makes the story powerful. Without the challenge, there is no victory. Without the breakdown, there is no comeback. The moment when you feel like you're at your lowest is often the moment right before your greatest rise. Think of athletes who have torn muscles, suffered injuries, or lost big games. Many could have walked away forever, but the ones who believed in their comeback, who trusted that their best days weren't behind them, became legends. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Serena Williams battled injuries and setbacks that could have ended her career. But they believed in the comeback, not the breakdown. And because they did, the world witnessed greatness. The same is true for Peter Dinklage. There was a time when he was broke, living in a small apartment, struggling to pay bills with rejection after rejection piling up. It would have been so easy to break down, to accept defeat, to tell himself, "This isn't for me." But he chose to believe in something different, that his moment would come. And because he believed, he kept pushing, he kept showing up, and he created a comeback that inspired millions. Your life works the same way. You will face breakdowns, emotional, financial, physical, or spiritual. But when you face them, you have a choice: to give up or to get up. To let the breakdown bury you, or to let it become the foundation for your comeback. The breakdown is temporary. The comeback is permanent. The breakdown only defines you if you stop there. The comeback defines you when you rise again, stronger, wiser, more determined. The difference between the two isn't circumstance, it's mindset. So how do you believe in the comeback? First, stop telling yourself it's over. It's not over until you quit. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're moving, your story isn't finished. Second, visualize your comeback. Don't focus on the pain of today. Picture the strength of tomorrow. Third, take small steps forward. Comebacks aren't built overnight. They're built one decision, one action, one day at a time. Remember this: people aren't inspired by perfection. They're inspired by comebacks. Nobody remembers a smooth journey. They remember the fighter who fell and got back up. They remember the person who came back when everyone thought it was over. Your comeback could be the very thing that gives someone else hope in their own breakdown. Life is not about avoiding breakdowns. It's about refusing to stay broken. It's about saying, "Yes, I've been knocked down, but I will rise again." Because the comeback isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Proving that you're stronger than you ever knew, more capable than you ever imagined, and destined for more than you once believed. So, when the breakdown comes, and it will, don't let it define you. Let it refine you. Let it prepare you for the comeback you were born to live, because your story doesn't end in the breakdown. Your story begins with the comeback. Sometimes we underestimate the power of our own journey. We think our struggles are ours alone, our pain is invisible, and our victories don't matter to anyone else. But the truth is, your story has power, more power than you realize. Every challenge you faced, every obstacle you've overcome, every time you rose when you could have stayed down, you were creating something greater than yourself. You were creating inspiration for someone else. The world is full of people who feel like giving up, people who believe they're alone in their struggles, people who are waiting for a sign that it's possible to keep going. And often that sign doesn't come from celebrities, billionaires, or perfect success stories. It comes from someone like you. Someone who's been through the fire and still managed to rise. Peter Dinklage didn't just inspire the world because he became a successful actor. He inspired the world because of the story behind his success. He showed people that rejection doesn't have to be the final word, that being different isn't a weakness, that persistence pays off even when the world tells you no. His story wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or rejected. His journey gave them permission to believe in their own. And the same applies to you. You might think your story isn't big enough, isn't impressive enough, isn't worth sharing, but you're wrong. Your story matters because it's real, it's raw, and it's relatable. When someone sees that you went through pain and still kept moving, they see a possibility for themselves. They say, if they can rise, maybe I can too. Every scar you carry is proof that you survived. And when you show those scars, when you speak your truth, you give courage to someone who's still in the middle of their battle. You become living evidence that struggle doesn't mean the end. It means transformation. Think about it. How many times have you been motivated by hearing someone else's story? Maybe it was a person who grew up with nothing and built a life of success. Maybe it was someone who fought illness and came out stronger. Maybe it was someone who faced rejection after rejection but refused to quit. Their story planted hope in you. Now imagine the impact your story could have on someone else. This is why it's important not to hide your journey. Don't just celebrate the victories. Share the battles. Share the nights when you cried, the days when you almost gave up, the struggles that tested you, because that honesty is what connects us. People don't need another perfect highlight reel. They need the truth. They need to see resilience in action. Your story might not inspire millions, and that's okay. If it inspires just one person not to give up, you've already created change. Sometimes saving one person from giving up is more powerful than impressing a crowd. And the best part? You may never even know how many lives you've touched. But trust me, your courage will ripple further than you imagine. So never underestimate your journey. Every fall, every rise, every failure, and every triumph is shaping a story that someone out there desperately needs to hear. And when you keep moving, when you rise stronger, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're lighting the way for others. Remember this, the world doesn't just need success stories. It needs resilience stories. It needs comeback stories. It needs your story, because your story might be the reason someone else decides not to quit. Your story might be the reason someone else rises, and that is a legacy far greater than success alone.